Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by the venerable William Brad Alice. I do like the term venerable. Before we get to anything, got to tell you about a very good deal going on here. Become a PHNX diehard. Jacob Franklin, if you would pull this up right here. All right, here's the deal right now. 48 hours only. Die-hard membership with the free t-shirt has gone down from $80 to $60. Countdown to kickoff. Keep in mind, again, 23-24 football season is here, as is basketball. All kinds of good stuff. Check it out right now. Go to gophnx.com and become a die-hard member. All t-shirts and hats, $24, by the way. Very, very cool. Check it out. Gophnx.com. All right, now joined by the great William Brad Alice, I'm merely Mike Luke. Hello, William. I haven't seen you in well over 23 hours.
Yeah, it's been about 23 hours. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we got to do a little bit of radio down at the U of A. That was a fun time. So
I think that's my first on that station too. So we can chalk another one off the list of local media markets I've made an appearance on.
Well, there we go, man. And that's what we're all about here. Speaking of which, we got a lot to get to this show. We're going to talk a lot of Arizona football, a little bit of Arizona basketball as well. Maybe a little realignment, some Michael Crow ASU. But first, Brad, the season is here. We are in game week right now. Arizona needs to throttle NAU this week. I don't care what has to happen. 90-3, whatever. We got to exercise a lot of demons here, William.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out just how petty Jedd Fisch is, because not only did they lose to NAU, which was, to me, rock bottom for the program. 70-7 was pretty close, but it was all up from there. But also, apparently, some of the NAU assistants were a little in people's faces after the game.
Right.
So we're going to find out if he's got a little bit of that petty streak that, we've seen in guys like, I don't know, Sean Miller, some NFL quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see, because he could call off the dogs at like 42 to something, or he could try to do what, Stoops did to, was it Idaho, where they put 70 on him? Mm-hmm. I think Rich Rod was in the pushing 70s a few times. As a fan, I'd like to see them at least. Yeah, I want.
Would you run the score up?
I don't know if I wouldn't, unless I go out of my way to run. Like, I wouldn't be throwing bombs in the fourth. But if you're letting Noah Fafita and Braden Dorman have a full playbook, I'm not going to be upset about it.
No, I am totally back the A. Everybody hopping in here right now. All right, now, Brad, let's talk then a little bit about the QB spot. We're going to work our way backwards. All I ask for Jayden DeLaura is to just limit the peaks and valleys right here. That's all I really care about right here, because I think his highs are going to be more than high enough. Just don't have the bad games, because this team is talented enough to be able to help you out across the board on offense there.
Yeah, got to avoid the catastrophic turnovers. The fourth quarter turnovers in the red zone, turnovers that in your side of the field that directly lead to points. If occasionally he tries to force a ball in there, it's going to happen. But if he's, much closer to one interception per game as opposed to 2 interceptions per game, Arizona's offense is going to be pretty darn effective. But he's got playmakers all across this offense, whether it's a fleet of wide receivers, I think are pretty good. Obviously, they go 2-3 deep at tight end. You got a good running back core. This has the potential to be a really, really potent offense.
All right. I think back when I look at this offense, though, I do see a lot of, and again, it's not a perfect comparison for sure, but I do see a lot of 98 there. In that, in my opinion, and this is with all due respect to DeLaura, Keith Smith's a better quarterback than Jayden DeLaura. But across the board, though, the wide receivers, pretty comparable. You could go with a 2 tight end set. Now, I'm not saying that Tanner McLaughlin and Kean Burnett are going to be in the NFL for 10,000 years like Brandon Manamuliana and Mike Lucky, but it's not a terrible comparison across the line. Edwin Mulatalo, Yusuf Scott, Manu Savea, you can keep going and going there. Running backs, obviously there isn't a Trung, but at the same time, it's a pretty loaded unit right there, and we haven't seen something like that in quite a while, to be honest with you, across the board.
No, and I think that's going to be really interesting, because obviously the game has changed since then. Coaches are more willing to open the playbook, unlike Dick Tomey. But if you put that 98 offense into a modern game, geez, that would have been a good offense.
The only thing holding it back is Ortiz Jenkins.
Yeah, and even Ortiz was competent. He was good. Right. He just wasn't great like Keith Smith really was. Really, the only thing holding that offense back was Dick Tomey and the fact that he didn't want to put up 50 a game. They could have, but he didn't want to risk field positions, things like that. But yeah, this offense, it might be on paper the most complete, deepest offense they've had. Obviously some of those Rich Rod teams could really score, but this one may have more overall talent than those teams.
My only concern with the offense, well, it's twofold right here. Obviously, Jane DeLaura just limiting the peaks and valleys. And then the other thing I'm a little concerned about is that offensive line depth. The offensive line depth right there, I think at the starting five, love it. I think it's probably one of the best in the conference. After that, you got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm not sure they go more beyond 6 or 7, to be honest. And that could be a problem if you get some injuries. And obviously Jordan Morgan's a guy who's coming off injury. So is he able to go 100% of the snaps? You got some young guys there who are going to be in the mix. So I think there is some issues with line depth, but hopefully you can avoid that and just, play with your top 6 or 7, and I think you'll be just fine. Would I like to see them establish the run a little bit more late in games to try to, milk some clock when you have to? Yeah, they haven't proven that, but overall it's been a pretty darn good line.
Dick Talisker, great name. And is that a Richard Nixon icon right there? I love it. Richard Nixon from Redwood City, California, I believe. But he says Kelvin Yvonne was a key leader on that team. Anyone that vocal on this team, maybe Flo? We're going to find that one out. I mean, the really good Arizona teams have had vocal players, whether it's Brandon Sanders, whether that's Kelvin Yvonne, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to find out who that player is right there. And I don't know. That's a great question. Who is going to emerge as that Kelvin Yvonne?
Yeah, I mean, we're not close enough to it to know. Jedd Fisch is not going out of his way to tell stories about Kelvin Yvonne, or about Justin Flo or whoever, like Dick Tomey used to with Yvonne and other guys. Obviously, there's some leaders on this team, and we're going to see more and more who they are. My guess is that some of the Polynesian players are probably the leader of that group, because it can get cliquish at times, not in a bad way either, but like people from similar backgrounds like to gravitate towards each other. But I know Justin Flo has been great when it comes to recruiting, the pool parties at Jedd Fisch's house. So yeah, it would not shock me if we find out that Justin Flo is one of the real leaders of this team.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. You don't have to be the best player on the team, but you have to be somebody that commands respect. And I think that's really the key right there. Is that I'll just use Brandon Sanders and Kelvin. Both all-time great Wildcats, but they were far from the best players on their team. But they were people that commanded respect across the locker room and from that coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, that more often than not, your true leaders aren't your best players. Right. They're good players. They're players who get it done with their actions and their words. The Jake Fishers of the world, guys like that who, again, pay their dues, because a lot of times your best players are very quiet guys. Right. You look at Anu Solomon was a guy who didn't talk much. Willie Tuitama was a guy who didn't talk a whole lot. Antoine Kaysen was a real leader on that team. And other guys just assume the role when you don't expect it. So it remains to be seen, but I think it'll be interesting.
Now let's see here. Angel C00, great question. Said, is this team better than 2014? I think it has the potential to. I have no clue if it's going to. That's going to be hard because that team was again 10-4 and went to the Fiesta Bowl. But I will say that the talent level on this team I find fairly comparable.
I think it's slightly better on the offensive side of the ball. Again, it remains to be seen whether they can put up that kind of production. Because Rich Rod, for all his faults, was just a wizard at calling offense. Right. Defensively, I don't know if they're quite there yet. And that wasn't a great defensive team, but good enough to make some key plays. But that team also, while very good, had some things go their way. Had some got a little bit lucky, which you have to do in football. Sometimes, to quote the great Jesse Ventura, it's better to be lucky than good.
Yeah, for sure. And so that'll be interesting. That team did get lucky, but I will say that I think the offense a little bit better. Like you said, the defense I think is, the defense. let's talk the defense right now. We pretty much know what that defensive line is going to, or what this defense is going to be right here, at least from that starting perspective. When you go on the starting four, and I would be very surprised if it's not this on the down line, is going to be, Taylor Upshaw, transfer from Michigan via Colorado. On the other side, Isaiah Ward. Then inside there, you got Big Bill Norton and Tyler Manoa. These guys were all four-star kids, or except for Isaiah Ward coming out of high school. But they all fit, though, the entire thing that Jedd Fisch has talked about, how he wants to get bigger. And if they're going to miss, they're going to miss with big guys. This is a big defensive line. If it can play, we don't know, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, but they're deep. I mean, that's what I think you look at. You look at Kangaika, Big CO, Ugalele. I think those are all legit guys.
That's very good depth.
Yeah, on the ends, they like Patu. I need to see a little bit more, to be honest. But Davis, Mercier, Lane, those are all guys who look like they should be pretty good. Maybe not great, but pretty good players. But if you can go too deep at each spot, and it looks like they're going to go at least too deep at each spot, maybe even three at a couple spots, that's better depth than they've ever had. I don't know if the star power is there. I'm not sure Bill Norton's an NFL player. I'm not sure, Manoa's an NFL player. But when you've got five legit guys on those two interior defensive line spots, that goes a big way into shoring up that defense because you can bring in body after body.
This is the first year where I've looked at it in probably the last 3 or 4 years and said we have the potential to not be one of the 2 or 3 worst defenses. Now, again, we're not going to be one of the 2 or 3 best defenses, but there's at least manpower on this side. And while you're watching the game, if you're getting really riled up and you're like, man, I can't get to sleep, OGs is here for you, Brad. OGs. Being a PHNX listener just got a whole lot sweeter thanks to our buds at OG's Brands. It's so good. Do you get it?
Got it.
It's good. Right now, through August 31st, you can get 25% off 100 milligram bags of the fruits and the creams and all the Arizona, the Flower Shop locations. All you have to do is go to theflowershopusa.com and place an online order and use discount code PHNX at checkout. Then head to your nearest Flower Shop location to pick up. That's right. This deal is exclusive to our PHNX listeners. And a reminder, it's available only for online orders that are picked up in person. Discount code PHNX is active until August 31st. So get to hashtag flavoring life. All right. On the defensive side right here, we talked about Flo. Let's talk about Flo. I think he's going to be a part-time player, but I also think that he's going to have some impactful moments this year. Now, you could say some will be good, some will be bad, but when you have the ability to be able to hit like he does, and Jedd Fisch mentioned multiple times that he is the most explosive, quick twitch power athlete on the defense, you got to find a place for him somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. He's more of a traditional old school linebacker. He's not great in coverage, which you really need to be in the modern game. But I think the couple things he does is A, he's going to support the run very well. B, I'm interested in what they use for him as a pass rusher, whether that's blitzing him off, or even maybe subbing him in a package, maybe playing him as a wide, undersized defensive end, but just try to get that speed matched up on a tackle. Sure, looks like Manu and Himuli will be the 2 starters, but Flo is definitely going to see time on this defense. You made
a great point a couple months ago where you talked about Manu and you said, yes, the stats are great, but the next step for him is to be able to make those tackles not 8 yards beyond the, essentially the safety tackles, but to be able to fill a hole, to be able to be that Marcus Bell type where you're getting those tackles 2 to 3 yards at the line of scrimmage, not 7 or 8 down the field.
I mean, yeah, when you look at it, people who maybe don't pay attention to the battle in the trenches, really with your 2 defensive tackles, you don't want them making tackles. You don't need them making tackles. You need them keeping the linebackers clean so they can make tackles, as you say, 2-3 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Not as I say, as you say.
But not downfield. And again, what was always to say, well, it's great that my free safety has 15 tackles a game, except my free safety has 15. Same thing with the linebacker making plays 8-9 yards down the field. I think, again, Manu's very good in coverage. I think he has the potential to get better in coverage, but that run support is going to be key with him. And he's a big hitter too. He and Flo can hit. They can knock people down and hurt people in a good way, not necessarily a bad way. So that's what they need from them. But yeah, he's got to make those plays closer to the line of scrimmage.
Now let's talk about the secondary right here with something that I hadn't really thought about until yesterday. And this is just a guess. I do believe that Genesis Smith is going to start. That's just a guess. One thing that I will say, though, there's not many secondary players in the history of the U of A who have started as true freshmen, Brad. That's a heck of an accomplishment if he is an opening game freshman starter at safety.
Yeah, I think the biggest question is, right now, from all understanding, Genesis Smith is playing free safety, and maybe Arizona's other best safety is also a free safety in Isaiah Taylor. So, do they play one of them slightly out of position as more of a strong safety type? Do they kind of go when they go into more of a nickel package and bring in? Do they kind of go two free safety with an oversized run support safety? So I think there's a lot of questions there, but I certainly think we're going to see Genesis Smith play early and often for Arizona this year.
All right, great questions right here, Keck. As usual, you are wrong. I live in Tucson. By the way, I am coming live to you from about 200 yards from the U of A campus. But I would, I'll put it to you like that. So you're wrong as usual, even though we do like you. Let's see here. Let's get to Zona Tucson in a second. But Robbie Don, I appreciate the kind words, but we're all fam around here. Those guys do a really, really good job. I'm friends with all of them, and I'd recommend watching them. I watch them. They do, like I said, they do a great job, and I have nothing but good things to say about them. Got to keep in mind I'm a little bit older than them too. So
there's also a little bit more positive to talk about with Arizona football and basketball right now. So sometimes people don't want it, no matter how good the broadcast is, and those guys do a great job.
Right,
you're not necessarily turning in for bad news.
Right.
Again, with the program just being put on probation, with a brand new coach who's having to break in, 50 new players, something crazy like that.
We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about ASU here.
It's sometimes you don't want to. Again, I don't like listening to. I didn't like hosting post-game shows after losses, so I can only imagine people listening in after losses and bad news. So, but that whole PHNX network you guys are affiliated with under Big Ol' Saul's umbrella there, some top-notch people.
We got some rap coming up here. I'll give you a little bit of rap right here. But first, Keck, by the way, is a closet fan. Has the departure of Jason Harris been addressed? I should have addressed that. That's on me. Here's, at the end of the day, great kid, comes from a great family, obviously a legacy to the extreme. Just a kid that I feel should have played basketball. He's legitimately about 6'8". I mean, at the very least, he has always had a basketball player build. I would have played basketball. I wouldn't have played football. But when it comes to football at the U of A, he's just not that good. I mean, relatively speaking to what they want.
It comes down to one of those things. Some guys are great athletes who aren't great football players. And you can get away with that at the high school level. I don't want to speak out of turn. I believe it was Brandon Tatum, who was known to break every record for defensive backs in the weight room.
Right.
It's just an average player.
Brandon Tatum, who you can find on Fox News all the time.
Yeah, Nick Costa. 4.3 speed, could bench 500 pounds. Not a great quarterback.
Right.
And we've seen it in basketball as well, too. Great athletes who just don't make that transition. And I'm guessing that was Jason Harris. Again, you and I remember when he was, an 8th grader or a freshman, we thought it was going to be basketball first.
Right.
He gravitated more towards football. Obviously, his dad's a football coach. His brother was a football player. I haven't seen if he made the Bears practice squad today. I'll be interested to see with cut down day in the NFL.
He played well in the preseason.
He did. Obviously his mom was a basketball player, but hopefully that's his move now. Maybe take a semester off, work on the jump shot, go resurface at a place like Grand Canyon or NAU and make a run at a career overseas. It'd be
because it's difficult when you're that tall, and that was always kind of the worry for me. I mean, Julius Peppers was 6'7", but Julius Peppers was a thick 6'7". Even when we watched him play, for North Carolina in basketball, you could tell he had a football build to him. Jason Harris has a basketball type build that they're trying to bulk up on.
Yeah, and it gets to a point where at certain positions you just get too tall, especially if you have trouble putting on that length, that size. Obviously, a 6'7" offensive line, I mean, like an Orlando Brown type, who's 6'7", but he's 310 and still looks lean.
Right.
Jason Harris was what, 240 when he got here, maybe 250, and just could never add that size and could just never put it together. And again, it's not because he wasn't a hard worker. He just
it's a different era of U of A football right now. You're bringing in dudes like Elijah Rushing and Keona Wilhite, who we're going to get to, by the way. Brad, by the way, we got to get back to this, and Keck does back the A. I think we do know this by now. Keck, we appreciate you.
Keck, you've lived in this state long enough. You're obviously a smart. You really should know what bear down is. It has nothing to do with bears. It has to do with a dead guy. So it's kind of making fun of that. It's not quite like making fun of Pat Tillman. But it's not in good taste there, Keck. You should know your lore. I understand most of my ASU lore, even if I did think Pat Tillman was taller than he was.
Right. Yes, for sure. Now, speaking of which, you might find somebody like Keck who seems to be a man of the people at Circle K. All right, let's talk about Circle K. William, when was the last time you went to Circle K? Be honest, no cheating.
Sunday.
That's where it is. Listen, when you've got one of the sages of Tucson right here, one of the all-time pinnacles of the Arizona sports media, if he goes to Circle K, you guys should go to Circle K as well. Check it out. Here's the deal, though. Right now, you can get all kinds of good stuff, but I would recommend you could join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com. And again, it's America's thirst shop. New free membership. Save 25% off your first 25% per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. Wow, I like that one right there. Very good. Check it out. And again, back the A and back the Circle K. Dick Talisker says, Mike, how about all those U of A transfers performing in UMass's historic win? That was a very interesting that's an interesting roster right there, because I believe 7 U of A players are starting or in the 2-deep rotation.
Yeah, 8 all told. Anthony Simpson looked good.
He did.
His final numbers were not quite as good as his impact. I think he had about 100 yards of total offense, but he was running the ball. He was catching the ball. And I've always been a fan. I always thought he could have played here. Good on Isaiah Rutherford with the pick 6, although he kind of got picked on at times. None of those guys left on bad terms. I think Simpson's maybe the only one who could have played here. And even he would have been closer to receiver 5 instead of, option 2 there.
And wait a second. He could have been the fair catch guy again.
He could have been, but it's easy to root for those guys. Right. Don Brown left for a better situation. Those guys left to play for the coach who recruited them. It was, normally I'd root for our neighbors 4 hours into New Mexico, but I was rooting for the Minutemen in that game. And just like I was kind of rooting for Rich Rod and Jacksonville State against a UTEP team who, again, I'm friendly with Dana Demmel, but that team had some rough spots there.
It has some very rough spots. Yeah, so check it out. Circle K. Oh, by the way, Jesus VAZ says, hey, Mike, can we make a pitch to Coach Fisch to bring back the red jersey? I will ask him at the next presser. You have my word on that. I am writing this down right now. All right, now let's get to the secondary, William. Again, the biggest addition, I believe, on this entire team is Dwayne Aquina right here. We've talked about it. Dwayne Aquina, just in case you don't know, as accomplished a defensive backs coach as there is in college football history, period, point blank. 3 Thorpe Award winners, one of which wasn't Chris McAllister, which is still whatever. 9 first-team All-Americans, something like 35 NFL players, 16 first-round picks. Having him back there, and let's be honest, he's coaching. I know that he's a senior defensive analyst, but he's on the field doing everything. He's going to travel. I think his being around there, being that kind of that wise old owl is going to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously great at what he does. One of the top defensive backs coaches maybe of all time. And he's got a lot to work with. Now, they're young, they're inexperienced, but I really like the duo of Prysock and Davis, bigger athletic corners. It'd be interesting to see who ends up taking that kind of that slot corner role. I know right now it's that nickel role, that whether it's Stukes, I've heard, rumblings that maybe it's a Celestine, Markel
G7.
Irby. So yeah, it'd be very interesting. It would be pretty fun if it ended up being Prysock, Davis, and Celestine, 3 second-year players who came in kind of all together, kind of all similarly ranked. Celestine a little bit behind those guys, but that's a good crop of guys to build around. But they're going to take some lumps at times. They're young. Obviously, some of them just having a handful of games. But I think it could be real feast or famine with that whole defensive secondary.
I'm a big fan of Prysock. I think Prysock was, obviously a 4-star kid that was committed to UCLA. I think there's a reason that the staff I don't think they didn't want to lose Christian Roland Wallace, but I believe that they view that this is the year that Prysock makes that step. And Christian Roland Wallace, while solid, was not an irreplaceable type guy. I mean, he transferred to USC and is, as a backup, which wish him the best. But I think Prysock is the guy that needs to be able to make that jump and be that CB number 1.
Yeah, Christian Roland Wallace was a good corner, not a great corner. Again, you're right, not irreplaceable. There's a long line of guys in the early Dick Tomey era he reminded me of.
Who is better, him or Kelly Malvo?
Malvo.
Okay.
Malvo is just short.
Right.
Malvo is really good corner. He's in that kind of Keyshawn Johnson, was it Kelvin Hunter group?
Kelvin Hunter, K Hunt.
Yeah, so good, fine. Again, not as good as a Kelly Malvo, not as good as a Trevin Wade type. And that's not even going, nowhere near the guys you mentioned, the McAllisters and stuff of the world. He's fine. He'll play at USC. He probably won't be a difference maker. Essentially, what he did is he traded roles. He has the same exact role he was going to have at Arizona at USC. The difference is he's probably making a little more NIL money, and he's got a chance to play for a national title that he doesn't at Arizona. So it's a lateral move to a more established program.
Keck, if you're going to say something nice, which we appreciate, at least spell the name right. It's not Lee Boyd Malvo like the DC area sniper. It was Kelly Malvo, Malveaux. Check it out sometime. Don't ever say that again. But sorry, Brad, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I'm sure he's just shortening it to make it easier to type.
No, he's not. You're giving him Don't give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'm giving Keck the benefit of the doubt, so when I make fun of him later, he
fair enough.
Off guard.
But I'm excited to see Genesis Smith in all this. I thought I was given sheer grief for the longest time. I thought that this kid was, out of everybody in the class, I thought that he was the most underrated kid. I know he eventually became a high 3-star kid, but he just looks different. He plays a little different. He hits different. And you can tell the coaching staff too really, really likes him. And like I said, it's a big deal if you're a safety and you're a game 1 starter as a true freshman. Now, that doesn't happen a lot.
No, and I think it's both a credit to him and an indictment of the other guys. Again, I think that's the weakest part of the defense is the safety.
Depends on how you look at it, Brad.
Yeah. So, but I like Genesis Smith. Liked his tape out of high school. Like what people said about him, and I'm anxious to see him in a real game situation.
Yes, for sure. So we'll find out. Like I said, and I know I sound like a broken record. I just need the defense not to suck. If you can be. I'll settle for below average, but it's only like slightly below average. I can't have something where, you're the 11th best this year or something like that. I need to be more in that 9 range there, William. We ask for very little on this show.
They have to make some key stops in some key games against the middle of the conference. They got to force some turnovers at key times. Because to me, Arizona's fate this year will be settled playing similar teams, the Washington States of the world, the Oregon States of the world, even ASU of the those 9 through 5 teams,
right?
Ninth, and Arizona's got to probably creep out a winning record there, and that's going to take the defense having a game or two where they either make some big plays or just don't make bad plays and allow the offense to make plays. And if they do that, then this is, the 7 or 8 team win team we think they could be. If not, then you're probably looking at another 5-win season.
Brad, you're going to a Metallica concert Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Is this true?
I am. Metallica and Pantera. Yeah. I've never seen Metallica. I've only seen Pantera once.
And this is up in Phoenix, correct?
Up in Phoenix at the Cardinal Stadium, yeah.
All right, now let me ask you this. Let's just say that you're at the last second and you have no clue where you're going to be able to get those. You're going to be able to get those tickets. Game time would possibly be there for William Brad Allis. This is true.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I compared Game Time and other services and maybe found them just as good, if not better.
There we go. Check it out. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Check it out. You might see William Brad Allis there, and you might see Jacob Franklin, all 6'10" of Jacob Franklin. You'll probably be able to see Jacob. Might be a little harder to see Brad unless you are from an elevated view looking down.
Well, a good friend of the program, John Schuster, is going with me, so just look for the glare.
The problem, though, is that Schuster has maybe the smallest head in the world.
It is a tiny baby head.
It's like a little egg. So I don't, but either way, check it out. Game Time. Very, very good stuff right there. We need to talk about Salpointe for a second. So I went to the game and I didn't feel like sitting in the rain. I don't care that much about going to a high school game, but I do have some thoughts right here about Salpointe. I don't know if there's ever, first of all, I would be very surprised if there's ever been a better defensive line in the city than what Salpointe has now. And I think it's probably nationally one of the top 10 defensive lines. You got a 5-star DN pass rusher. You got a kid on the other side in Will Height that had 2 sacks. You have another kid, a sophomore who's got a U of A offer, another kid who's about to have a U of A offer, Luis Cordova, who's also a New Mexico offer, who's probably going to end up somewhere like that. Brad, we don't see that kind of stuff in Tucson very often.
No, not certainly with the high D1 offers. There have been some very good lines. Usually you have one anchor on that line who's a D1 guy, and then some lower D1 guys. And I can think of, there was a couple really good Ironwood Ridge lines. Even when I think when you were at Saguaro, they had a couple guys who ended up playing D1 ball, but they were his walk-ons with
Mike Wells.
Mike Wells, Qua Win, if you remember Qua Win.
I was a freshman when he was
Yeah, he was about a 300-pound Vietnamese kid who walked on at ASU and ended up starting for the Sun Devils. Right. But yeah, you'd be hard-pressed to find this amount of talent on one line. And in some ways, I credit Marana. They were able to at least keep their quarterback upright. He was rushed all night long. Mm-hmm. He was only sacked a couple of times, and he actually was able to hook up with Desmond Roebuck, who's another U of A offer, for about 115 yards and a score. So there was some real talent on display in that football game.
Yeah, Desmond Roebuck again from Williams' neck of the woods. His dad Sean. I've refereed many of Sean's games, by the way. Desmond's very good. Caught for 9 catches for $127, something like that. Very good. Rudy Martinez, great point. Great. Rudy Martinez, very good person, by the way. We appreciate Rudy Martinez. He said, does Nansen have what it takes to be legit or a defense? We're going to find out this year, in my opinion. Because last year was obviously a massive step back from year one of Don Brown. But you could also say it's his first year as a DC. But last year was not great. I'm not gonna blow any smoke right there. I think we find out if this defense makes marked improvement, then you might have your guy. If it's what we saw last year, then you kind of wonder if Dwayne Akina is going to be the defensive coordinator next year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Some of their comeback last year was losing some players. Not that the defense was great the year before, but I think the jury is completely out on Nansen at this point.
Right. So we'll find that one out. Great question there. The thing that I liked about Don Brown's defense is, again, it wasn't like it was a great defense, but they were aggressive and they at least forced turnovers. It was something that after the Marcel Yates era, where you essentially said, just take the 15 yards, but you're not going to beat us over the top each time. It was a welcome thing. But like I said, all I need is if Johnny Nansen has the eighth best defense in the conference this year, I will say that is a huge win there, William Brad Allis.
Yeah, you need to be in that middle group. You can't be in the bottom 3.
All right. Now, you might say to yourself, Mike, you keep talking about betting and betting on the Wildcats. Here is the strength of the PHNX Wildcats movement. We have moved that line from 4.5 to 5, where it's even minus money now. You better get in on this while you can. So again, check it out. BetMGM right now. But now there's a very cool little thing going on right now. If you sign up for BetMGM, use bonus code PHNX, deposit $10 and place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if it loses. That's some pretty good stuff right there. Bet against Keck. Keck's been wrong most of this live stream right here. Bet against ASU or back the A. Either way, check it out. BetMGM. Let's hear the great Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-522-4700 Nevada. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Kansas, Nevada, New York, or Ontario.
All right. By the way, let's see here. Dick Talisker, again, great name. Mike, watching Singer on Saturday look good. What do you guys think his season numbers? Dorian Singer's good. I mean, period. Like, the people that are trying to say that he's not good that's either sour grapes or you don't know football. Dorian Singer is a very good football player. His numbers might take a little bit of a jump back, if that's definitely not the right verbiage, but 800 yards, 8-9 touchdowns. I could easily see something like that. What say you, William?
Yeah, I think his numbers will take a slight dip only because of the amount of talent there. And frankly, there might be some games where they're just not throwing in the second half much.
Right.
I think USC has some big question marks about being an undefeated team, but certainly when they're rolling, they're going to steamroll a lot of people. But Singer's in a good spot. Obviously he might take a small step back role wise, but he's going to have eyes on him. So if he was an NFL player, he will have just as good a chance at being drafted with 800 yards as he would 1,300 at Arizona.
All right, we need to get to. I'm going to stick up for the ASU fan for a second here, and the players here, and we're going to do a little U of A basketball before we sign off. Brad, I thought it was a really crummy move what Michael Crow did, where you wait until the week of the football season so you don't lose any players, and then you say, "Yeah, we're going to do the self-imposed ban." That to me that was Bush League right there to the extreme, and quite frankly, if I was an ASU fan, I'd be infuriated. John Wilner talked about how he could see legal action being taken. I would do whatever it took because, again, that was we joke about Crow not knowing what streaming was, but this was really just kind of a middle finger that I don't care about you kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's the smart move because the odds of them going bowling were slim this year. But you announce it in June, in July. You let seniors go somewhere else. I don't think it would have cost them a ton of recruits, but it might have might have hurt them. So yeah, I think the timing is what absolutely sucks. Not only for the players in the program, but just the momentum of the program. Because right now, even though, again, we don't think ASU is going to be very good, optimism's high around that program. Every kid there believes they're going to play for a national title. And you just completely deflated them. And and to be honest, I don't think they'll tank. In fact, if Dillingham is worth his salt, and I think Dillingham's going to be a pretty good coach.
I do too.
I think he's going to use this as motivation. He's going to fire. It's the real us against the world, not what Northwestern's BS that they're pulling right now. I think it was just bad timing. Again, I think it was the smart decision, but make that decision in June or July.
Is there anybody that looks like a bigger scumbag in hindsight than Herm Edwards?
Not when they keep playing that clip of him lambasting Louisville.
Right. I mean, but no, again, I will give ASU people that. By the way, I actually like Kenny Dillingham. I don't want them to do well, but Kenny Dillingham, I've heard from a lot of different people, is a good dude. And on top of that, I had a number of people, including somebody who you all know, who texted me last night and said that even Ray Anderson told Michael Crow this is a big mistake doing this right now. when Ray Anderson, who has not exactly been on the forefront of things, is warning you against something. But again,
doesn't that also show how little power Ray Anderson has right now? If that is true,
it really is. Because again,
you think Robbins would self-impose without huge consultations? I'm guessing he and Hiki had huge meetings before the postseason ban with Arizona basketball, which in essence I think was trying the final door to push Sean Miller out.
Right.
So I think that if true, if your sources are right, and I'm not doubting them, that's a bad look for that power structure there.
All right, before we sign off, Brad, I'm getting a little bit nervous about Jamari Phillips right now. I keep watching him. By the way, you should all be following his dad James Phillips on Twitter. Jamari Phillips is talking with some people. Jamari Phillips is probably going to start itching closer to about that 12 or that 13 type ranking. You watch his offensive game, and he's got an old school game. He can get you from all three levels, the three, the mid range. He can get to the basket as well. And his athleticism has improved immensely. Brad, I'm worried that I thought that I thought that we would be able to maybe get 2 years out of him. I'm wondering now if we only get 1 year.
At least it's going to be 1 year. I'm just hoping that, Game Time Elite or whatever those teams are don't come calling. So let's make sure his NIL deal is sound. And he's really good. He's really, really good. And maybe, enjoy him while they're there. And that's ironic because one of the reasons I think Arizona made that big push for him is they thought they had a 2 or 3 year player there.
Right.
Carter Bryant was the guy they expected to lose after 1 year. And, Tommy doesn't seem to want too many of those guys in one class. And I guess that's a better problem than, bringing in too many Adama balls.
Would it surprise you if Jamari Phillips was instantly better than Carter Bryant and turned out to be better than Carter Bryant?
No. I think Carter Bryant's the safer bet just with his build and his type of game. But no, Phillips is really, really, really good.
Okay. By the way, Rudy Martinez right here. Very good point right here. He says, Herb Crow doesn't care about sports. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, not Herb Crow, excuse me. Michael Crow does not care about sports. Freudian slip right there. I don't care what anybody says. Arizona would have left to the Big 12 without ASU. Yes, you are correct. All right. Before we sign off here, William, where can they find you when you're not coaching up the future Ralph Zarate of Flowing Wells? How about that for a 90s reference?
There you go. WSR Brad on Twitter just posted a podcast yesterday. He's going to hope to get 1 or 2 more out this week. But yeah, in fact, I retweeted a little while ago, right before I retweeted the link to this one. But it's bringing back an old column I used to do for Cat Tracks where I would do my weighted predictions, percentage of winning the game, as opposed to just yes or no. So what is Arizona's chance to beat Team X, Team Y? So did that. I'm going to do also bring back another feature I used to, and it was kind of a little shot at a certain columnist here in town, but I used to do Ask Professor Pigskin. So if you have any of your own questions,
I know where that's going.
Most of the questions were actually by my dad. And I would
Arthur Alice.
Yeah.
The great Arthur Alice.
Yeah. So, but if you want questions, throw them out there and either DM me or throw them up on Twitter and I'll answer them. And that's probably going to be Friday's podcast. It's my little game preview as well as just talking about, the world of U of A sports. And we'll throw in a few stories here and there.
Brad, what are you doing? What are you doing Friday?
I'm going to Metallica.
Oh, that's right. Duh, you're going. Yeah, going to Metallica. My bad. Duh, my fault.
Which game were we going to? And if not, then Tyler's got club baseball practice. So we're busy in these parts.
We're working though on Brad Alice though. We're working on post-game show though. Keep me in the loop on that.
I should be good this week.
All right. Now, before we sign off here, got to hit this diehards package again right here. Jacob Franklin, if you can pull up the graphics. All right, here's the deal. 48 hours only, diehard membership with a free t-shirt here, and you get 25% off. How cool is that? It's 80 to 60. And you got great t-shirts as well, $24 shirts and hats. These are the kind of things that make me attempt to look cool or just look like Jacob Franklin, who's already cool and even cooler wearing one of these. Check it out right there. All right, now, All right, go PHNX.com. Check it out right there. Now, for everybody on there, really appreciate all of you. We're in game week right now. For the great William Brad Allis, I am Mike Luke, the big dog Jacob Franklin behind the scenes. Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.